So welcome everyone. I am so happy to reintroduce Cynthia to you all. So she presented a couple years ago, but she is with Samaritan Behavioral Health and she's the program director for them. But she has a very extensive background, has worked with attachment theory and interpersonal neurobiology. Is that right?
You nailed
Cynthia?
it. You nailed it.
All right. But yeah, we are very, very happy to have her back, and I will let you take it over.
All right. Hopefully everybody can hear me clearly. Thank you for the introduction, Sarah. As she said, my name is Cynthia Treasure. I am a licensed professional clinical counselor with the supervision designation. So I get the honor and opportunity to work with other therapists on training and educating on the work that we do, which I love. So today I'll be sharing my screen here. And we're gonna take a look at, let me share my screen. We'll get this set up. Okay. And let me know.
We can see it, so I think you're good.
Can you see it?
Oh,
yes.
It's doing something really funky over here.
It just went away.
Ooh, okay, hold on. Let me move this. I think I figured it out. Hold on. 1 second, everyone. I'll do share. Let's try this again. Tell me when you can see it.
I see it.
Yay, we're in business. Okay. So let me move this over. Today we're going to be talking about the impact of stress and what that does to our mental health and our bodies. And from that point, what we can do to help ourselves find balance. So this is a conversation or a topic that is near and dear to my heart. I am not immune to stress. Being a program director and working with a clinical team and hundreds of different patients and, just life, I experience stress on a daily basis. So I thought this was something really good to kind of talk about because I know it impacts all of us. So we're going to look at all the different impacts, what it does, and ways we can find balance. So make sure, went ahead. So what we're going to be covering, and I can't help myself, I feel like I can't fully get away from academia. So we'll start with some objectives. I want to look at stress, not just as a word, but really understanding it, the types of stress, what happens in our bodies, the impact on our mental health, and what goes on even within our nervous system. I wholeheartedly believe that knowledge is power. So the more we can really understand what's occurring, that allows us to help ourselves more effectively. From there, we'll take a little segue into looking at stress in America or on a societal level to help drive home this idea that nobody's immune and we're kind of all in this together. And we'll end on things that we can do to bring balance. So let's get started. Okay, so I think what we should first do is we want to define stress. So stress, if we're going to be really scientific about it, stress is defined as a state of threatened homeodynamic balance by a wide range of intrinsic and extrinsic, real or perceived challenges or stimuli, defined as stressors. So that's like the formal definition of stress. And in real people words, basically what we're looking at, it's when we run into events in our life, they can be like actual outside, really challenging situations, but it's not just that situation that's causing the stress, it's also our internal experience of that situation. And it's something that we're encountering that is causing a change to our system. So to define it a little bit further, stress is really any demand that we encounter that causes our system to go outside of its normal regulation. And so these are really situations that are often unpredictable and have like an uncontrollability to them. So hopefully your mind is kind of thinking on that and recognizing like, my goodness, that is so much in our life that is unpredictable or that we don't have control over. Let's see. Oop, there we go. So we use the word stress a lot. I'm so stressed out, or oh, they're so stressed out. But I think it's important to recognize that stress really, it's not a simple thing. It's actually really complex. And what happens in our bodies and in our nervous system is also really complex. So stress can be just from like a really big situation. And that's a really easy kind of thing for us to recognize as being a stressor in our lives. But it's also important to know that stressors can also be the small things in life, and they add up to affect us just like one of those big challenges would. And we can run into this when we might be feeling the effects of stress and we're like, I don't know why I'm stressed out. Like I don't have anything big going on. That can be a time to be like, well, maybe I don't have one big thing going on in my life, but maybe I have, 8 kind of smaller stressors. Our system doesn't really differentiate that. It's going to feel all 8 of those at the same time. So we're going to encounter that like a big stressful event. Obviously, common examples can be things like just overall life pressure, worries about our future, anytime we're feeling overwhelmed, where we have things in our life where we don't feel in control, new or additional responsibilities. Aging, people don't recognize the stressors that come just from aging. And if we're blessed enough to be able to be aging, stress comes with that. And change, I highlighted and bolded change because change is the only constant in life, and our body perceives that as stress. And stress isn't necessarily just what we would say are the bad or the negative things. Stress is also born from positive life things that we want. When we get married, holidays, birth of a child, graduation, new job, going on vacation. I think about preparing for vacation. For me, who is a planner and likes to have everything like locked and loaded, and love the feeling of control. Planning for vacation is very stressful. So it's not necessarily the things that we first think about. It can be the things that we want in life too. It's anything that our body and our system is encountering that is requiring it causes a change in our homeostasis or the natural kind of balance of what our system is doing. So there's 2 types of stress. I think we all know the word distress. So the harmful stress and the kind that we're really going to be focusing on today is the distress. So this is the excessive and prolonged stress that is overloading our system. Distress is the type of stress that causes our body, our system to actually have a maladaptive response that leads to the compromise of our physical and mental health. Which includes the impact on our life expectancy. We also have hopeful stress, or what's called eustress. And eustress, we encounter this as well. It can be repeated. It's usually shorter duration, but eustress is motivating stress. Episodes of eustress, instead of it being maladaptive, it allows our body to have adaptive responses that are actually beneficial to our system. So when we are in a mode of encountering eustress, we experience kind of an increase in energy, an increase in goal-directed behavior and motivation that allows us to tackle that stressor, and it's good for us. So not all stress is bad. I want to point out that our our bodies, and I'm going to nerd out. You're going to have to listen to me nerd out for a while. And I warned the ladies that it'll be a little bit of some sciencey stuff going on that I find really exciting and interesting. But our bodies are miraculous. They are so smart, and our body is always wanting to maintain balance. So when we encounter stressors, our body is on it, and it is going through a gazillion different modes to try and bring our body back into that state of balance when we've encountered something that's knocked us off kilter. So that highly sophisticated system will react to stress with what I call the stress response. And this is focused on self-regulation and adaptability of our body's energy and being able to redirect that energy to where we need it to go. The other type of stress that we have is we have acute stress and chronic stress. So acute stress, these are the quick, short, kind of smaller things in life. I'll just use a personal example, like for today. Public speaking or things like that, I definitely, feel some stress for this. But I would categorize the stress that I feel about today as stress. I find it motivating and exciting. It would be the acute type of stress because, well, I might have had, stress leading up to the presentation. I'm excited about it. And once this presentation is done, it's done. And I move on. It's temporary. Then we have the chronic stress. And these are the stressors that are ongoing. Typically, they're lower intensity because they're such long durations, but it's the chronic stress that has the wear and tear on our system. The examples of that chronic stress can be things like unhealthy relationships. Oh, sorry about that. My PowerPoint, something funky there. Persistent, unrealistic job demands, and ongoing financial challenges. Like these are things that are in our lives on a kind of an ongoing or that chronic basis that we're encountering again and again, that causes kind of a constant dysregulation of that body system. So now I want us to kind of take a segue into looking at what is actually happening in our bodies when we encounter that stressor. So we'll start with acute stress. Our body is going to respond with a plethora of changes. And these changes, it doesn't just occur like up here, but it is a full system issue. So it impacts our cardiovascular system, our nervous system, our endocrine system, our immune system. Like it is a full body adapting and responding situation. So when we encounter acute stress, the first thing that happens are stress hormones are released. And the goal of this is to increase our body's energy so that we can tackle whatever stressor we have in front of us. The second thing that happens with all this new energy, our body needs to do something with it. And so it goes into saying, all right, we need to prepare. We're going to develop a new pattern of energy distribution. And that additional energy that it has created is directly sent out to where it's going to be needed the most, which is like our skeletal muscles and our brain. And our immune system is like, okay, there's something going on in our environment. We're perceiving it as, this could be a threat. We need to be prepared too. And so our immune system will actually send out cells to their battle station. So that's kind of what starts it. Once that kind of flip is switched, the less critical activities like digestion, that's put on hold. And our sympathetic nervous system, which is responsible for producing cortisol, that is activated, and cortisol is sent out, which really, cortisol is energy. I think a lot of us have heard cortisol. It gets a really bad rap. It's not an evil thing. Too much cortisol is damaging, and that is detrimental to our health. But for these acute stress responses, an increase in cortisol is what is giving us extra energy to tackle and overcome whatever obstacle or stressor we're facing. And so all of this energy goes out to where it's needed most, and it's done by our heart pumping a little stronger. Our blood pressure increases to get that blood there quickly, and our blood vessels constrict and dilate to make sure that our vital organs that need to be functioning at optimum capacity can do so. Those immune system cells that went on high alert, they actually will send those cells out to the outside like skin tissues, because your skin and your immune system is literally preparing for battle. So feeling an increase in stress, like for this presentation, I know that I have more immune cells out towards the surface of my skin. So if in my stress frenzy, I were to give myself a paper cut, that paper cut is going to heal a little bit quicker because I actually had those immune cells that were ready to go right away. So I just find that just fascinating that our body just goes into this hyperdrive. And I like to think of it as like, my body's got my back. It's going to do what it needs to do to get me through these additional obstacles that that I'm facing. I'm gonna take a moment here. So now we're going to look at, so that was acute stress. That's the short-term stress. Now let's take a look at chronic stress. So remember, the chronic stress is really what has that wear and tear and that detrimental impact on our bodies. So when we are under constant stressors, because our body does all of those things I just went over to prepare for, to overcome this challenge, if our bodies are always kind of sitting at that high alert, wear and tear, when that blood pressure remains high, that's going to lead to damaging arteries, plaque formation, heart disease. The immune system's going to suffer. It can lead to things like autoimmune diseases. And what that can look like on the outside, the signs and symptoms of when it's like, man, I've been under a lot of stress and I'm taking that wear and tear. It can look like being really cranky, irritable. Our patience goes out the window. And when you can remember the ways that your body and everything your body has done to prepare for these stressors, it makes sense that we wouldn't have a lot of patience, because our body is geared up. Being geared up all the time can cause us to feel anxiety. We're not able to have the interest in things that we used to have when we're always, looking to have to tackle different challenges and different stressors. When we feel overwhelmed, we look to isolate. It can lead to depression or escapism. Escapism isn't necessarily a bad thing. Sometimes we all need a break. But when we are leaning towards escapism more and more, we are kind of shutting out of life. This can strain relationships, causes overall poor functioning, and it can also lead to substance abuse. And I want to call out that substance abuse is not merely like drugs and alcohol. It can be things like shopping, gambling, gaming. These are things that we are being drawn to because internally we are really struggling. Physical symptoms, panic attacks, being tired all the time. We find that we have issues with sleep. We might have chronic headaches and muscle pain, developing rashes. I am fine to share a personal story. About a year and a half ago, I myself was under a great deal of stress. I've chosen a profession that can come with a fair amount of stress. And I actually I developed hives, and I had never had it before. And I went to an allergist and he asked about my stress level. And I'm like, oh, no, it's not that. Even though I know all of these things, I'm like, no. And as I got to talking, I was like, oh my gosh, it's that. Those immune cells were in such hyperdrive that they were kind of attacking my own body. And so I had hives for a few months, and I had to really prioritize my self-care. So I say all of this from a very personal place, because it impacts all of us, and it is so important to take care of ourselves and to recognize the impact of stress. It can actually cause changes in vision because of the way that our system can go into hyperdrive. It affects our vision. It can change our gut health. For women, it impacts our menstrual cycles, blood pressure and heart health. It can cause weight loss or weight gain. I'm the type of person that likes chocolate when I'm stressed, so I'm definitely not in the weight loss category there. Poor concentration. Some people will kind of pick their skin, or pick cuticles, or sometimes there's even like hair pulling or eyelash pulling, teeth complications from grinding or just holding their jaw tight, and kind of overall physical and mental health decline. I'm not trying to be doomsdayer by any means, but I think it's really important to see all the different ways and all the different signs and symptoms that can result from the challenges that we are encountering just from life, living every day. So stress is going to impact us differently at different times. And, I'm a therapist at my heart, and I have sat with so many people, and I've heard things like, oh, I've handled stressors like this before, and I was able to handle it so much better. Well, you were at a different time in your life then. We can't really compare that. Where we're at in our life, what's already on our plate, and how long have those stressors been there? What supports do you have in place? What's your overall physical health? These are all going to impact your ability to handle the stressors at that time in different ways. So if I encounter something really stressful and I have a great support system, physically I'm really healthy, and maybe my natural temperament is just pretty laid back, I'm going to handle that stressor in a better way than if I'm going through a period in my life where I don't have as many supports, and maybe I have some health conditions. Stressors are going to hit me harder. The other thing to know is that our learned patterns of coping and our ability to handle distress, our stress response behaviors and skills are also going to impact our ability to keep ourselves regulated and to kind of stay on a level playing field. And when we find that we're struggling, this is where I'll put a plug in there that therapy can be really effective. The other thing to know is that it's not just about these kind of external things or really easily identifiable things. Genetics and our early environment, this also has a pivotal impact on the way that we are responding and able to regulate and get through hard times. So if we are a human who was exposed to a lot of change growing up, I grew up in a military household. I think I went to 7 different elementary schools and 2 high schools, lots of change. So my neurodevelopment learned really early, being prepared for constant change. So I have kind of a different brain structure than somebody who maybe was raised, in the same home and never moved, and things were very anchored and calm. It impacts how our brains are wired. And I will go a step further, and even from like a fetal development, and I could really nerd out and go to kind of, well, I'll stop there because it'll lead me on a tangent. But when, as like a developing baby, when we're exposed to when our mothers have been exposed to chronic stressors, that impacts our DNA on a DNA level, our ability to regulate and respond. So I think this is really important to remember and to sit with, because it shows how and why each and every one of us reacts and can regulate differently. And one is not better or worse. It just is. but it is there. And that's why, you know, one person can go through something and they're cool, calm, and collected, and the next person sitting next to them, you know, is really struggling. So I like to remember this, and it helps me have a lot of compassion for myself and a lot of compassion for others. And so I now want to look at our nervous system. So we just went over in review the types of stress, acute and chronic, distress and eustress, what goes on in our body, and those signs and symptoms. Now I want to take a look at understanding how our nervous system responds to stress. And this is going to really help when we get to like our coping, ways to cope with stress. So the part of our nervous system that we're going to focus on is our automatic nervous system. And just like it sounds, this is the part of our nervous system that we don't think about. It's automatic. It keeps our heart going. It keeps our lungs going. You know, things are going on without us having to do anything about it. Thank God. Within that automatic nervous system, it's comprised of two different systems. So we have our sympathetic nervous system, or SNS. And when we talk about our sympathetic nervous system, I want you to think of it as your brain's gas pedal. It's, you know, it's pushing down that gas, it's rearing up our system. After we get through talking about that sympathetic system, then we'll transition and talk about our parasympathetic nervous system, or PNS. And I like to think of the parasympathetic nervous system as the brain's brakes. And it's really easy to get these kind of, you know, mashed together. For me, I remember the parasympathetic being the brakes, of thinking it as like a parachute, and parachute starts with P. So that helps me keep them separate. So what activates these systems, that gets these systems online? It's going to start obviously in our brain. And I find this fascinating. Right in the center of our brain, we have an area called our amygdala. And our amygdala is what's responsible for all of our emotional processing. And if you'll notice on this diagram, that amygdala is sitting right at the top of our brain stem. And our brain stem is what's responsible for getting all of our external data and information and situations first. Everything goes there first. So that amygdala, because it's so close to that brainstem, it is first to be activated. So when that amygdala fires up and we have an emotional response, it shoots on over to the hypothalamus. And the hypothalamus, you can see, is right next door to that amygdala. The hypothalamus is really what I call the command center. So the hypothalamus is what's doing all of the communication. Think of it as like the guy that's in the driver's seat and is pushing down that gas pedal. The hypothalamus is getting that sympathetic nervous system online. It's what triggers our fight, flight, or what I'll add in like frenzy, because sometimes we just kind of frenzy. And I like this diagram because it shows the cerebral cortex. And you'll notice that the cerebral cortex is far away from our amygdala and our hypothalamus. The cerebral cortex is responsible for just somebody. Sorry, I get distracted. I just want to make sure everybody has their mute button on. There's some weird sounds coming on. Let me see. Let's just see. Thank you all. Sorry, it doesn't take much for my brain to be like, burr, burr, burr. So our cerebral cortex is responsible for like logic and reasoning. And it's far away from that brainstem, so it's kind of the last one to go online. And we also have in the front, like our prefrontal cortex. And again, that's responsible for logic and reasoning. So the areas of our brain that we go to really think things through, our brain accesses them last. And that's important to know. And we'll when we go to the ways to kind of calm ourselves, it'll make a little bit more sense. Let's see. Okay, so when we encounter situations in life, these big stressors, this is kind of the breakdown of exactly what happens. And again, I think knowledge is power, and just knowing that our nervous system and our bodies are doing all of this every time we encounter stressors, I find remarkable and fascinating. So the amygdala, we encounter a stressor, it hits our amygdala. It sends out that distress signal right to our hypothalamus. That hypothalamus or command center hits the gas pedal, and that sympathetic nervous system is activated. It then sends signals all throughout our automatic nerves into our adrenal glands, which respond by pumping out the hormone epinephrine, which is just a fancy word for adrenaline, into our bloodstream, which then goes all throughout our bodies, causing many psychological changes. Think about like right before you go on a roller coaster, what you encounter. So that's all going through our bodies. Those glands respond by pumping that adrenaline right into the bloodstream, which circulates through our body. Our heart beats faster. It's pushing that blood through our muscles and our heart and those vital organs. That blood pressure and heart rate increase. Our breathing increases, with the goal there being our lungs are opening so we can get in more air. And with more air, our brain can be more alert. Our sight and hearing and other senses can actually be sharper. And that epinephrine or adrenaline, it's releasing glucose and fats that we actually store in our body, so that those additional nutrients can flood into the bloodstream, so that we have even more energy that our body can use to be successful at whatever situation we're encountering. I find that remarkable, so it's not just like, I feel stressed. Like our body, our whole body is involved with these stressors that we encounter. And that's why it can be, after a really stressful day, we can go home and we're just exhausted. Your body and your mind are doing all of that. And this happens so quickly, we are often unaware. And again, I just find this just fascinating. It happens so quickly. That amygdala and that hypothalamus are already kicking that brain into gear before our brain's visual center even knows what it's seeing. So we haven't even processed what we're seeing before our brain is like, all right, we're preparing. And this is a good thing. This is why we can jump out of the way if we need to, or on a evolution kind of mindset, if you're going to go there, how we're able to better survive predators. So if I accidentally step off a curb and a car is coming and I didn't see it, my brain has me responding to jump out of that car before I have even processed that I'm seeing a car. That is how amazing our bodies are. So we have that first initial surge of adrenaline. And if we need, let's say there's an ongoing big stressor, if we need additional resources for that stressor, we have a stress response system known as the HPA axis. And so our HPA axis, again, it's made up of that hypothalamus, the pituitary gland, and adrenal glands. And this is that sympathetic response. It's what allows that gas pedal to stay down. If we are experiencing a lot of chronic ongoing stress, that HPA axis is going, it's pushing that gas. Excuse me. So when our brain continues to perceive there's a threat, all of those cascades of chemicals, those are ongoing. They keep pumping out. That adrenaline, that cortisol, it's continuing to go through our body. That's what keeps our body revved up. So helpful if we need it, damaging if we don't. When that threat is past and those cortisol levels begin to fall, this is where that parasympathetic system, where that brain's brake pads or brake pedal can be activated and our system can begin to slow down. So we're going to learn ways here in a sec to help strengthen that brake pedal and to have a little more control when we need to slow our system down. And it's like, hey, I don't need to be revved up all the time. Before we get to that, I want to take a moment to look at stress from a societal perspective. So the American Psychological Association, which isn't a great association membership, they're fantastic. If you ever are interested in nerding out, type in APA and just kind of see what's on there. It's a great site. There's mounting evidence that our society as a whole is experiencing the psychological impact of what's known as collective trauma, meaning we've all kind of been through a lot and we've been through it together. And while COVID-19, it ended its state of emergency in 23, it doesn't just mean that what we experienced is tucked away neatly. That ongoing wave effect, we are still feeling it. And furthermore, stressors on a societal level, we encounter them on an ongoing basis through things like global conflicts, racism, social injustice, inflation, climate-related stressors, ongoing disasters. Like, this list could be huge. So again, I'm not saying this to be, doomsday, but really to show what we all face collectively and why knowing about stress and ways to bring balance is so important. So there was a big survey that was sent out, and from the respondents, we saw a huge shift, and not in the direction that we were wanting it. So there's been a huge impact overall on Americans' health. So when we look at chronic illnesses, and again, going back to all of the different things that our body does in response to stressor, it makes sense that it would lead to chronic illness. In 2019, 48% of Americans had a chronic illness, which is a high number. Things have gotten worse, where in 23, we're now at 58%, with those between the ages of 35 and 44 being the most impacted. So I'm right in that category. I think a lot of us are. Mental illness rates increased. In 2019, there was a 31% kind of rate of mental illness, and in 2023, we were at 45%. And those between the ages of 18 and 34 had the highest rate increase at being 50%. I included this quote because I thought it was really powerful. The APA's Chief Executive Officer, Arthur C. Evans Jr., PhD, said, "We cannot ignore the fact that we have been significantly changed by the loss of more than 1 million Americans, as well as the shift in our workplaces, school systems, and culture at large. To move towards post-traumatic growth, we must first identify and understand the psychological wounds that remain." I wish I could be so eloquent. Here's a graph, because I love graphs, that really kind of drives home. You can see the red is 2023 and the black is 2019. And this is looking at the percentage of adults who rated their stress level between an 8 and a 10. And 10 was the number for like a great deal of stress. So it's a lot to think about. And I have some sobering statistics here. As humans, we have a habit of downplaying our stress. 67% of respondents who were surveyed felt that their problems were not bad enough to be stressed out about because they knew of people who had it worse. I could go on a tangent about this one. As a therapist, I hear this so often of like, I don't have a right to be upset, or I know so-and-so has it worse, so I shouldn't A, B, and C. And that is just not true. Just because maybe somebody does have it worse doesn't mean it takes away from the stress that you or I are experiencing. 62% said that they didn't want to discuss what was bothering them out of fear of burdening others. 61% said that they felt that those around them just kind of expected them to get over it. 47% wished they had help managing their stress. 36% said they didn't even know where to begin to manage it. 66% said in the last 12 months, they needed more emotional support than they had. And 44% said they felt that others didn't understand what they were going through. I wanted to share these statistics because I think we can be so critical to ourselves. And often we're in this mindset of worrying about others, or others have it worse, or we don't feel understood. And so I think knowing that so many people feel that too, my hope is that if you are somebody who is in one of these percentages, that you don't feel so alone, that you don't feel strange. There's nothing wrong with you. These are common experiences. So I hope knowing this, it allows actually for an increase in self-compassion and also compassion for those around you. So what do you do when stress has left you off balance? So now we're going to segue into the active things that we can do to help ourselves bring more balance into our lives. And we're going to start out with some simple stuff, but simple doesn't mean that it's not crucial. First things first, remember and accept. I say this to you, I say this to me. Some things are just outside of our control. I love having things, go my way and feeling like I'm in control of things. That's not how life works. So sometimes we just have to sit with recognizing some things are just outside of our control. We have to learn how to prioritize and vocalize our feelings and needs. Learning time management skills can be really helpful. Easier said than done, I know. Setting limits. I put limits on here twice because I would put it on here 5 times if I didn't feel like that was overkill. But knowing that we have permission to set limits in our life is crucial. And then learning how to do so important. Trying to carve out time for hobbies and interests, knowing that if we rely on substances, that actually isn't helping our bodies cope with stress at all. So learning new tools, which we'll get to, allowing yourself to be supported and knowing you have permission to ask for help when you need it. Exercise. So we all hear about exercise, and I know sometimes you're like, I get it. I should be exercising. I feel stressed because I know I should be exercising. All that is true, and it is helpful. So when we exercise, it helps actually improve our sleep. It increases our slow wave cycle during sleep. We have these different sleep cycles and different brain activity patterns. But when we exercise, we have found that those slow wave cycles during sleep, those increase. And that's actually, those slow wave cycles are what goes into the brain and the body kind of renewing and healing, which leads to better stress management. Exercise leads to our body releasing really helpful hormones like endorphins and endocannabinoids, which that's what causes that like feeling of runner's high. If you're a person who likes to run and you have felt that, the endocannabinoids are what is the producer of that. And because I think, trying to fit in stress or trying to fit in exercise can actually be a stressor. I want to emphasize that it doesn't have to be something that is all time consuming or difficult to do. Trying to just find small ways to put movement into your day. I actually, I'll show you. I keep I keep little dumbbells by my desk. And I don't know if you can see it, but back there, I have a yoga mat. And so even if I just have like 5 minutes and in between meetings, or I'm noticing, whew, my system's getting riled up, I'll carve out just a couple minutes to move my body, so that I know it's gonna help me better regulate throughout my day. So even if you're just carving out small moments to do it, it matters. And do activities you enjoy. You're not gonna exercise if you hate it. I put this in here because this is a way that I do exercise and I enjoy it. Have a dance party in your kitchen while doing those dishes. Put on the music that you like. Take that 15 minutes and just move your body. So exercise. Be mindful of your diet. A healthy diet equals a healthy gut. So if the healthier our gut is, the healthier our mental health is, and the better we can manage stress. Our diet strengthens our immune system. Remember that immune system is put in hyper gear when we're feeling stressors. It's going to facilitate and help that blood pressure stay healthy and our sugar levels stay at a good level. Remember everything that stress does to our blood pressure and sugar. Ideal food choices are going to be things like complex carbs, lean proteins, fatty acids, fish, eggs, and nuts, antioxidants. They help protect the body against that chronic stress damage. And foods that are great for antioxidants are beans, fruits, berries, spices like ginger, probiotics, chef's kiss. They are so important for our gut. We can either take them or eat fermented foods like kombucha, which I like. Some people think I'm insane because I like it, or like kimchi, and then supplements like magnesium, vitamin C, omega-3 fatty acids. Those also help protect the body and impact stress. Sleep, we know sleep is important. I get it. This is a constant battle for me. So if you are one of those where it's like, it's hard, I get it. But sleep is healing. It's a buffer from stress, and ways that we can help ourselves sleep are exercising regularly, getting sunlight in our eyes within an hour after waking is ideal. I learned this from a neuroscientist. His name is Andrew Huberman. You can find him on YouTube, and he has a podcast. I did this as somebody who is a natural night owl. I would wake up, I'd go outside. You want to kind of look in the direction of sun. I cannot tell you how much this has improved my sleep and just getting my circadian rhythm or my sleep schedule in a really healthy place. Avoid electronics before bed at least 30 to 60 minutes. I am guilty of this, and so I've had to be really diligent at certain times of turning my phone off and like putting it across the room. I'm serious. Avoid alcohol and caffeine. Caffeine is hard for me. And try not to exercise close to bedtime. Remembering that good sleep hygiene is crucial, and we want to find a sleep routine, and find something that you can stick with that works for you. And it can be, turning your phone off, drinking a soothing beverage, having a book, getting comfy, and kind of doing the same things every night if you can. So you also want to try, if possible, to sleep in a cool, dark room. Temperature matters. When our body is hot, it actually makes sleep really difficult. And depending on if you have air conditioning in the summer, I know that can be tricky. Yoga, it's been around for over 5,000 years for a reason. It calms our body, it calms our mind, it reduces the impact of stress. And I'm not talking the type of yoga where you're like standing on your head and, twisting and contorting. If you like that, cool. I love that that's your jam. But the yoga that I'm talking about is focused on slow movement, deep breathing, and stretching. And one particular type that is beautiful, it's helpful. Personally, I love it, hatha yoga. And so it's nothing where you're like, oh my God, what's happening? But it's so good for our system. It's going to reduce that sympathetic or that brain gas pedal, and it will help increase our ability to use our parasympathetic or that brake pedal. It's also going to help our body produce more helpful hormones that will reduce that extra cortisol that if we're producing too much, it's not good for us. So it'll help reduce that and allow us to feel more calm and content. I can tell you on a personal note, when I am practicing this, even for 15 minutes, if I can a day, I like to do the calming type of yoga in the evening. Makes such a difference, to the point where there'll be times where I come home, I'm feeling a little bit stressed out, and my husband will see it and he's like, maybe you want to take a little bit of time to kind of do some breathing and yoga. And I'm like, yes, you're right, I should do that. So now I want to look at ways that we can activate that parasympathetic nervous system or that brake pedal. So if you're open to it, acupuncture, honestly, I have a family member who was like, oh, that's woo-woo. I'm not going to touch that with a 10-foot pole. Their doctor was like, listen, I really want you to try acupuncture. I just talked to him a month ago, and he said that he wants to get his acupuncturist tattooed on his arm because it made such a difference in his life. Massage can help activate that parasympathetic system. And I know we hear this, and a lot of people will eye roll when I talk about breathing, but really breath work and doing breath work in the right way is the first thing that we can do to send a direct signal to our brain that everything is okay, that I can handle this, that we can calm down, that brake pedal can be activated. Specifically, we want to do long, slow exhales. So we can inhale, but we want the exhale to be longer than the inhale. Hot baths, if you have some Epsom salt, that's magnificent because it has magnesium, which increases relaxation. Calming music can be really helpful. If you can, and you can even put this on Spotify and type in, wanting 432 hertz. There's studies that show that listening to music at that hertz level increases our calm feelings, and most music is at 440. So just changing that hertz level can be really effective. And what we're looking to do here to activate the parasympathetic nervous system, we're looking to activate our vagus nerve. And our vagus nerve, I believe, comes from this Greek word. It means wandering. So it's a nerve that starts at our brainstem. It goes down through our throat, through our chest, and into our abdomen. This nerve is what triggers us to feel that rest and digest. Remember, if we're gearing up for something stressful, digestion gets put on hold. So we want to activate this nerve, which helps kick that parasympathetic system into gear. So if you're looking to activate that vagus nerve, some easy things you can do, something simple, honestly, cuddle a pet, sing or humming. There's a reason in yoga where they say, it is activating that vagus nerve right there in your throat. Listening to birds, seriously, it's not just that birds sound nice, but our brain interprets birds as being a sign of safety. When there's danger, there's no birds. When we hear birds, our system is like, okay, things are okay, I'm safe. Garden, if you can do it barefoot, or you can just walk outside and be barefoot, it is so grounding, and the ground has negative ions in it, which helps us feel grounded and anchored and activates that vagus nerve. Laughter, art, do what you enjoy. It doesn't matter what you're making or what it looks like, but if you enjoy it, do that. Coloring, a lot of people will find coloring really relaxing. I do. And if you look at it, I call it bilateral. There's a left and a right and a left and a right. I do EMDR therapy, and we use EMDR for a lot of or bilateral movements for a lot of different things. And so when we can engage in things like walking, left, right, coloring, we're getting this bilateral movement, which our system can perceive as being that brake pedal that you need. I'm going to show you, got 5 minutes left, a couple really easy things that you can do to activate that vagus nerve specifically, or that vagal nerve specifically. One of the things is called triangle breathing, and I'll show you what it looks like. Try it out. You want to breathe in for 4, and then you want to lock and hold. As a visual, you can plug your nose, you don't have to, but you want to lock and look down, hold for 4, and then unlock and breathe out for 4. If you can go a little bit more than 4, remember, if we breathe out longer on the exhale than the inhale, that's going to be even more calming. And so it would look something like this. Breathing in, 2, 3, 4, lock, hold. And then I'm going to breathe out for 4 or 5. And you'll want to do kind of multiple rounds of that, but that's known as triangle breathing. And because when we look down and we hold our breath, we're putting pressure on that nerve. There's also a really easy one. It's called the forehead neck cradle. And super simple. You just put your hand on your forehead and your other hand on the back of your neck. And with some light pressure, all you're going to do is just hold that, and also try to just breathe slowly and really notice the temperature of your skin and that sensation of being held. This is activating that vagus nerve. You're putting that pressure back here. Our brain likes this, and it really allows that brake pedal to begin to come on down. You might feel silly, but it is really, really helpful. Also, I know cold plunging is kind of the rage right now. If we're looking to activate the parasympathetic nervous system, that's not what we want to do, because cold plunging puts our body into a stress response. There are health benefits from it, but not for trying to activate calm. But if we put a cold pack on our face, like on our cheeks, or really on the back of our neck, that really kind of cold, you can do cold water. Cold pack is ideal, but cold water will also work. It triggers what's known as our mammalian dive reflex, which slows our heart rate. It slows our heart rate variability, or the time before beats, and our system kind of, it's like this quick downshift. And nature, I love this quote. There is a way that nature speaks, that land speaks. Most of the time, we are simply not patient enough, quiet enough to pay attention to the story. When you are out into nature, go somewhere that you can enjoy and just be present, slow down, try to use your senses. What do you see, hear, smell, feel? Just be really present. That mindfulness can really go a long way into lowering cortisol and blood pressure. Nature for me is my favorite medicine. And I would end on, please be kind to yourself, be kind to others. I hope today you really got to see the far-reaching effects of stress, how it impacts you and others, and things that you can do to bring balance into your life. Try different things out. Remember that we're all different. So what works for me may not work for you, and that's just fine. We're all different, and what's my cup of tea isn't yours. Cool. Thank goodness we're all unique. And give yourself permission. Please, please, please give yourself permission to care for yourself and have self-compassion. And I think they'll share this. I have the resources that I shared last year. I have added a few from Oprah magazine. Actually, she has a great website with many resource links that are fabulous. I included the City of Dayton's EAP number and the Find Help resource that shows your resources. And I also wanted to add, I added this year the National Maternal Mental Health Hotline. So if you or anybody you know is struggling with the stress of parenting or being a new parent, this is an amazing, it's free, And you get to talk to trained therapists to help you through that process. It's a great site. So that, oh, and resources if you want to read more. So I'll stop sharing now. Let's see. I hope that was helpful.
Now, I know we're kind of cut on time, but is there anyone that has any immediate questions before we continue on? Thank you for bringing up everything, Cynthia. I really do appreciate you. As a reminder, we did add yoga to this wonderful a month of mental health of July. That's going to be on July 26th at GDRC 12 to 1. You can go on city time. I just want to make sure she brought up yoga, so I wanted to make sure I made that announcement. I'll do that today and tomorrow. And don't forget, we have one more mental health session this week and then another one the week after next. But does anybody have any questions before we let Cynthia go?
I'm sorry, I know I cut it close.
Oh, no, you're fine. We needed all the information possible. I'm not a nature person, but I did not know you can possibly get hives from stress.
Oh,
that
yes.
Could be what's going on with me. Is there anybody else that wants to unmute themselves and ask any questions of Cynthia? If you don't mind sending me those resources, I know we sent out the ones from last year, but yes, if just in case the slides, I would love to share that with the people that attended today. Anybody? Okay, going once, going twice.
There's lots of great comments in Cynthia. Yeah.
Oh, thanks, Sarah, for chiming in. But thank you guys so much for your time. We're sorry to go a minute over, but make sure that you pay attention to your points. Make sure you're logging points in. This is actually something that Sarah will upload within the next week. I am not at work, obviously, so I'm going to have to type that into my Excel spreadsheet a little later. And I'll get those points to Sarah so you guys can get your adequate credit for being here. Thank you so much. And hopefully I'll see you guys tomorrow. Thank you so much, Cynthia, for your time.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Have a good day.